So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't have the agenda, there is an agenda in the comments. We're going to do a little bit of back and forth today. So some of it we're just going to be just chatting on what's going on in the world of cookies, what's going on in the world of privacy, what's going on in the world of data. We do have some slides that we'll share with you at some point too. So we're going to be bouncing back and forth. And like I said, if you feel comfortable to share your turn on your camera, at least even just for a moment, so you can wave at us and say hi, that's always a lot of fun. No pressure there, but certainly it's exciting to see all the folks that are joining us. Hey, Rachel, good to see you. And let me go ahead. Everybody just grab the agenda because I'm not going to share my screen when we're going through the agenda. I just want you to be able to follow along. So if you'll grab that and take a look, the first part of the agenda is just some I want to say homework, but it's really not homework. It's just housekeeping. That's the word I'm looking for. Some housekeeping items. Number one, if you're not part of our my Demand Gen Jammers group, we have this awesome group on LinkedIn. There's a link in the agenda for you to join that. It's an awesome opportunity for us to stay connected between our monthly jam sessions. And so if you're not a part of that, I would highly encourage you to be a part of it. We'd love to extend the conversation there. We've got a very full agenda today. I don't think we're going to get through, honestly, everything in the agenda. So that Jammers group is a great opportunity for us just to stay connected in between. So I would encourage you to do that. And then for those of you that haven't met Ryan Miller, he's our co-host. He's been with us since the beginning of the year as our SVP of Sales and Marketing. You want to say hi, Ryan?
Hey guys, great to see some familiar faces and some new ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we have obviously Andrea, who's been with me for a long time now on these. You want to say hi, Andrea?
Hey all, yeah, I'm just the moderator here on the Demand Gen Jam session. Feel free to drop any questions you've got in the chat.
And you're not just the moderator. I mean, you're Andrea, the moderator. So yeah, feel free to chat questions into Andrea. She'll tee those up a couple of times throughout the session today. And that way we get all your questions answered. One of the things I love about these sessions is there's a lot of chatting back and forth and just engagement between the folks that are here just attending. So feel free to share your 2 cents. I mean, you know, Ryan, Andrea, and I, we don't have all the answers. You might have some great answers too. And we'd love for you to get in there and chat those in or chat your thoughts in. That's certainly something that we would love. And then we do have a special guest with us this month. And not only is he special because of all the great knowledge that he's going to bring to the table, but Ryan Gibson is our very first invited back guest. He was here this time last year, roughly, and he talked all about how to run customer interviews and customer investigations and why that's really important to get to the bottom of voice of the customer. And we invited him back for this topic. And I don't want to steal his thunder because we're going to get into that in a little bit. But Ryan, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hey, everybody, and thanks for having me back. I'm honored to be I think you said I'm the first one to repeat?
Yeah, the first one, man.
Oh, look at that. I'm going to put that on my CV now.
Yeah. And you know, that awesome backdrop behind him is actually not a backdrop. That's an amazing cabin, his family cabin there. It's beautiful.
It's a 90-year-old fireplace behind me.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. So, well, excited to jump into this and, you know, to kind of get the conversation going. We'd love to have you guys just give us some feedback. Ryan, you want to walk us through just a chat discussion?
Yeah, so we have some pretty, important questions. The very first one is we'd like to know, what's your favorite cookie? There's a lot out there, so we expect to see some variety, but we'll probably also see, sort of the table stakes rise to the top. So really, that's first step.
And we're not talking third-party cookies or first-party cookies, right?
No,
we're talking like the
good
double
old-fashioned
chocolate chip cookies, right?
Loaded chocolate, whatever your things are, the actual flour-based cookie versus the data cookies. So we really need to go that direction. Okay, Snickerdoodles, I'm loving them.
Oh yeah, red velvet cookie. I've never had one, but I want one so bad.
Monster cookies. Okay, Snickerdoodles has 2.
Awesome.
All right, so we're going to synthesize that data and probably submit it to Gartner for, some of their statistical analysis. It's going to be pretty profound. So thank you guys. Oreo, solid. The other one is kind of what are the top concerns regarding marketing in the cookieless world? Where are you guys at? We'd love to know just to get some sentiment. Um, Marketers across the board are all over the place, but you're part of our community, and we want to know what's going on with you. The other one is, what is your plan, words, to collect more first-party data? And if that doesn't make sense to you yet, it will soon. But if you've got some thoughts on that, we'd love to hear it.
Awesome. Yeah. Big thing, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but third party cookies are going away. First party cookies are not. But first party is really the key word. We need to be thinking about how do we get more first party data and how do we leverage that as marketers moving forward. So love to get your feedback on that. Okay. My computer just did something so bizarre. Why are you doing that, computer? That is the weirdest thing. Okay. So my computer decided to do something on its own. It's now not doing that anymore. Thank goodness. All right. So moving on, I just wanted to talk about a couple of other things on the agenda. Number one, we've got two really awesome events teed up for April. One is our Demand Gen Jam session, which will be right here, same place, but on April the 17th, we've got a special guest coming in to join us, which is someone from Jasper, Kaylin DeCourt. She's awesome. One of the most awesome people I've met over at Jasper. She really knows her stuff. She runs a series over at Jasper called How Jasper Uses Jasper. And for those of you that don't know, Jasper is an awesome B2B generative AI tool. So unlike ChatGPT or some of the other AI tools that are out there, this is one that's built for business with cool features like brand voice and collaboration and things like that that are hard to do in some of the other generative AI tools. And so they're going to join us next week or next month rather, and we'll be talking about how does Vendy use AI to serve our clients, to serve ourselves, and then we'll be talking about how does Jasper actually use AI for their business. And so that's on April the 17th at 12 o'clock. You can go ahead and register now if you want to. The link is right there. And then Ryan, I'm going to pitch it back to you because I'm super excited about what you're going to share.
Yeah. So Vendy's hosting an event in Denver, Colorado. This one's going to be B2B Connect, the AI Mixer. So we're going to be doing a very fun and engaging atmosphere. We're going to be talking about AI. And Paul and I will try to do very little of the actual talking. We want to hear from B2B marketers, business leaders, get some conversations going. But most importantly, food, beverages, bowling, giant Jenga, all the things. So that's coming up on April 25th. There is a registration link if you're in town, if you're around. We'd love to have you.
Where's the Zoom link for that one, Ryan?
What's that? The Zoom link?
Yeah, where's
no.
the Zoom link?
Sorry, you got to be a resident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we'll send you pictures and video of the things you couldn't attend, and maybe we'll be doing it in a city near you.
yeah, absolutely. So we've done for over 20 years, we would do events like this, and then COVID happened, and we started the jam session as a result of that. Really excited that we do the jam sessions. It's an awesome way to connect with people all over the country, but I cannot tell you how excited I am for us to actually be doing live physical events. And this one's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're anywhere near Denver, I would love, love, love to see you guys there. And like Brian said, we'll take lots of pictures and make the rest of you guys feel really jealous. So if you
Yeah,
can't make it. So
if you guys have any questions about it, just reach out to me. We can connect and all the things. But I hope to see a few of you guys there.
awesome. Okay, well, let's go ahead. And now that we've got the housekeeping stuff taken care of, let's jump into our primary topic. And what we're going to be covering is really what's going on in the world of cookies, what's going on in the world of privacy, and how can we leverage our first-party data to really become excellent at marketing, knowing that these third-party cookies and things like that are going away. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got some things we're going to share with you via screen share, but then we're also just going to have some discussions. And to set the table, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. There are a couple of things that I thought would be good to help us just get on the same page. So let me share my screen. Hold on real quick. And I've got a blog. I've linked to a blog. And by the way, we've got a ton of resources at the bottom of the agenda, some blogs and other resources that we've made available to you, some really amazing posts that Ryan shared on LinkedIn. They're all down there in the reference section of the agenda. Be sure to check those out. But this is just a part of a blog that we just actually published, I think a week or so ago. I'm going to scroll up. It's Navigating the Cookieless World, a comprehensive guide for B2B marketers. And what I'm going to do is just jump down here to this section right here because I thought this graphic might be helpful to everyone, just as we kind of get our heads around really what's going on in the world of cookies. And, the thing to understand is that it's third-party cookies that are going away. It's not all cookies that are going away. It's just third-party cookies that are going away. There's primarily there's two types of cookies that we use. One are third-party cookies. The other one are first-party cookies. And so first-party cookies are those that we have on our own website. And the purpose of first-party cookies are primarily to help the user have an awesome experience on our website. So we all experience first-party cookies every single day. When we go to LinkedIn and it automatically logs us in and remembers things about us, that's an example of the use of first-party cookies. We put first-party cookies on our website so that, like, for example, we're a HubSpot user. And so we have what are called progressive form fields. And so when somebody comes to our website and they fill out a form, we ask them just a few questions. But then when they come back and fill out another form in the future, we're using first-party cookies to understand what we know about them so that we can get a little bit more information from them every time they fill out a form on our website. That's called progressive form fields. That's driven by first-party cookies. So those are examples of the good types of cookies that are not going away. Third-party cookies are entirely different. So they're cookies that are put on your website by a third party, and they're used primarily not for the benefit of the user so that they have an amazing experience on our website, but rather they're used primarily for advertising. And so what I wanted to show you here on this graphic, if you're looking at it, is we've got this user here at the top left. And he can come to your website or he or she comes to your website. You can put a cookie on their browser. By the way, cookies are things that are added to a browser. And then that way you can remember things about them when that person comes back. They can go to your website. They can go to another website. The same thing happens. That's fine. Okay. That's exactly what is not going away. But what is going away are when there's a third party that's collecting that data. Maybe they put a pixel on your website because you've given them permission, but they're using that pixel as a way to track us across different websites, track us across different devices, and it's used primarily to serve ads to us. And so if you've ever been, I'll give you a great example. Maybe you are out there and you're looking for a new CRM software. And so you go to Google, you type in CRM software, you end up on HubSpot's website, and now it's a beautiful spring day like it is here in Texas. And you're like, hey, I wonder if the weather's going to be nice enough to play golf this weekend or take my kids to the park. And so you go to the Weather Channel's website or some weather website, and you're there to see what the weather's going to be like over the weekend, but you're served all kinds of ads about either HubSpot or other CRM providers. That's a result of third-party cookies. One thing that, you might be aware of is if you've got a smart speaker, they listen in to conversations, or you have a smartphone, those types of things historically have been listening to discussions that you're having, monitoring things that you go and do and websites that you visit. And that information is then shared with these third-party advertisers so that they can show you ads. And so that kind of information is going away, and that type of advertising is going away. And so when you think about what's getting impacted as it relates to that, some of the areas that are going to be challenging are certainly like intent data. So if you think about intent data providers like Zoom or 6sense, they're going to really struggle in this post third-party world. And I promise you, they're already struggling with it because Google's kind of the last one. One thing I meant to mention earlier is this is something that's been happening for a long, long period of time. In fact, Firefox started this several years ago by eliminating third-party cookies from their browser, and then Apple did their thing, and then Google made their announcement 2 or 3 years ago, and then they delayed it until this year. But now it's April. The latest information is they're going to stop supporting third-party cookies next month. And so any application that really was dependent on monitoring users across multiple websites and across multiple devices, that's going to be much, much harder for companies like intent data providers. And so I was actually going out to get ready for this jam session. I went to 6sense website and a couple of other intent data providers' websites just to see what are they doing as a response to this. And so they're actively making transitions, but I promise you they're going to struggle in really presenting great ads to folks using, that quote unquote our intent. If you're not familiar with that term, what that just simply means is, these third party or intent providers, if you will, what they'll do is they'll be able to present to you, hey, this company or this group of companies might be in market for what you do. And they are able to determine that by looking at different users that work for that company and what they're doing in Google or what websites they're visiting, what they're doing on G2 or Clutch sites, just what other companies are they looking at. And they collect all that data as a way of showing, and then they call those signals as a way of showing to you or allowing you to go advertise to them as, oh, hey, XYZ company might be looking for what you are in the market or what you sell because they're looking at these websites. It's all anonymous to you. You don't know who these people are, but they'll reveal the actual logos of the companies. And that's all been managed primarily through third-party cookies. And so that kind of stuff is going away. If you've done things like advertised on Google display where you want to run retargeting from somebody that's been to your website using the Google retargeting network to other websites that aren't Google's websites. Those are examples of things that run on third-party cookies, and that kind of stuff is going away. And so just something to think about. So if you've been building your marketing and your advertising based on multiple devices or people visiting multiple websites or trying to figure out who's in market for what you sell or do, that's going to become more challenging in the future after April. So hopefully that makes sense. If you've got questions about that or something was unclear in the way that I described that, just feel free to drop those questions in chat and we'll open it up towards the end to get those questions answered. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll actually kind of get into the agenda here. So I'm just going to jump down to the next section of the agenda, which is really all about what is being impacted. I feel like I've kind of talked about that. So cross devices getting impacted, cross platform will be impacted by this. Display retargeting, intent data. Oh, multi-touch attribution. That's another one that's really going to go away because it's going to be hard or not. When I say go away, it's just going to get harder for us to really monitor all the things that happen between first and last touch, especially if those things aren't happening on our website. And so I'm going to stop talking for a second and give Ryan and Ryan an opportunity to jump in here. Anything you guys want to add to the conversation?
I'll let Mr. Miller go first.
Well, I don't. So far, we're on a great roll.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I kind of hogged the airtime there, but I wanted to make sure that we laid a good foundation on, hey, third-party cookies are going away. First-party cookies are staying. And, one thing that I didn't touch on there, but, like retargeting isn't going away. Third-party retargeting is. But if you want to retarget people that come to your website on another website, like let's say you want to retarget people that come to your website on LinkedIn, you can do that. That's absolutely something that you can do, which one thing that people don't understand is you can retarget any traffic that comes to your website on a platform where that's another website that we're not talking about third party here. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've got Google, you've got SEO traffic coming from Google, or even pay-per-click traffic coming from Google, and you've got the LinkedIn pixel on your website. You can retarget that traffic because it landed on your website first. You can retarget that traffic on LinkedIn. That's absolutely possible. You can do that all day long. And any website that wants to retarget visitors from your website on their website, that's not going away. What is going away is the old school retargeting where, you put a pixel, Google puts a pixel on your website, they come to your website, and now they're at that Weather Channel website, and you're gonna display an ad there. Google's not going to be able to do that anymore without third-party tracking. Now, again, they're doing things to try to come up with new ways. They call them fingerprints now. We were kind of joking about this yesterday, that the cookie's gone, but now we've got fingerprints. Well, what are fingerprints? They kind of look like cookies. They're still trying to figure it all out, but that's kind of the world that we're going into. And so why don't we do this? I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part of the agenda, which is Ryan Gibson's presentation, where he's going to really just kind of help us climb up the ladder just a little bit. We've been talking specifically about cookies, but we thought it would be good as we're really trying to figure out how do we do the right kind of marketing for us to think about data and how is data used and how can we leverage data as marketers. And so, Ryan, what I'm going to do is pull up your presentation on my screen and share it. And then I'm going to pass the baton to you, sir, and let you take over.
Yeah. So, what I want to do in the next few minutes is sort of walk people through the different buckets of data. How Paul sort of explained this before we jumped on this jam session was it's sort of taken the view up a little higher because cookies are just one version of third-party data, and it's one source of data amongst a number of sources of data. And cookies are really still relatively new when you think about it in the long tail. Like I started in B2B when the internet wasn't really a thing. Like my first job in B2B was taking faxes from the fax machine and putting them in the filing cabinet. So, we've come a long way, and there's almost been an over-indexing, I think, into some of the technology and some of these third-party sources. But before I get into how we use all this stuff, I want to explain a bit like what each source is. So third-party data for me is very like broad data, and it just sort of helps enrich what you should already sort of understand about your customer. It can enhance your targeting, like we talked about. It can help you with like trend analysis and maybe new markets to expand into or new ways you're going to grow revenue lines. The challenge with this data is that the quality and accuracy is often not the best. It ranges the gamut. There's issues with the compliance and privacy, as we're seeing. Not everyone wants to have their data out there that they're not in control of. A key thing for me is that it lacks a relevancy often to our business. Just because you see a logo of some business that was on your website doesn't mean they have any intent towards your solution. And you're dependent on another party and their methodology for gathering this data, which sort of ties into accuracy. And for a lot of places, it's expensive to get this data. I've seen the bills for a lot of these tools out there, and it is a significant amount of budget for a lot of B2B companies. So next slide, Paul.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I was going to mention too, Ryan, that when I was looking at your slides to get ready for today, the thing that I was reminded about by looking at your slides is that third-party data in and of itself isn't bad, right? Third-party data is just a data point, right? Collecting third-party data using pixels and storing information like that on browsers is what the internet, people like Google and some of the policies that countries and governments have put in place are concerned about the trackability and the privacy concerns of using that way of collecting third-party data. But third-party data in and of itself is just information. It's not a bad thing, right, Ryan?
Yeah, it's one piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think you need elements of it, but you need other things. And those are the other things I'm going to show you in the next few slides. But absolutely, agreed.
Can we just make it real clear for everybody too, just really, again, why we're here, like what happened from a privacy perspective, some of the CCPAs, GDPRs, you guys want to touch on that for 2 seconds?
Oh, I'll let Paul take that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you kind of answered it even in your question, Ryan. So, it started in Europe, right, with GDPR and just concerns about how private is our information and how anonymized really is the information, and can people actually figure out who these customers are? Because the promise of third-party cookies all along was, hey, we're going to be able to understand your behavior and we're going to be able to serve really relevant ads to you, but we're not going to know who you are. We're not going to know that that's Ryan Miller. We're just going to know that that's a person that has an interest in CRM software based on the things that Ryan Miller is doing. But the advertiser is not going to really know it's Ryan Miller. Well, there's a lot of concerns about, well, maybe they can kind of figure that out over time. And then now Ryan Miller's no longer anonymized. We know who he is. And so there was just concern about that, which was really the driver of it. And there's more to GDPR than just advertising. It's really, how do we collect data with our users on our website? Are they giving us permission or not permission to do those things? But that was really the driver. And it's interesting that Firefox was really kind of the first one that kind of lit the fuse on this thing. They felt like the third-party cookie wasn't atomized enough. And so they decided, to protect their users who use the Firefox browser, that they were going to quit using third-party cookies. And then obviously the fuse was lit and a lot of things have happened. And now here we are in 2024. And, as of next month, according to Google, all support for third-party cookies are going away. Why that's significant for Google is that 60% of browser users are on Google, the Google platform, Google Chrome. So that's really what's going on and been the driver of that.
Beautiful. I agree. So like third-party data, we've been talking about it, but there's more than just what we've talked about. There are data brokers, but research and analyst firms like Gartner or Harvard Business Review, Baines and Co., those are third-party data sources, right? They provide a lot of high-level research that you can use in B2B and B2C motions. Websites that sell data we talked about, and then even government and public records are an example of that. So, for equivalent of myself, I'm Canadian, there's industry codes that all levels of government have that talk about, how, the segmentation of industries, growth, GDP, things like that. So these are all data points, but they're not necessarily in-depth views of your specific segment and your customer and maybe how they do things. They just add to it. It helps influence that stuff.
Yeah, a great example of that is like data enrichment, so that's a big tool. That's a big thing today where you take your CRM list, maybe you ask, HubSpot has this built into their platform where when somebody fills out a form and they give you their email address, they're able to tell from that email address what company you work for, and then they automatically enrich that company record inside of HubSpot with number of employees, where the headquarters is, things like that. So they're using third-party data as a way of enriching your first-party data, and that's completely fine.
Exactly.
And not to pile on anymore, but this is exciting, guys, because you have your first-party data with good third-party data that is enriching your overall CRM database.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a beautiful thing. And that's something you can do here right now, and that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. So I'm glad you brought that up.
There's also second-party data. So it doesn't get talked about as much. There's also zero-party data, which I didn't put in today. I don't want to get into zero-party data. That's like a whole other thing. But there's blurred lines between a lot of these things is really what you need to understand. Second-party data is really the data of another business. That could be a partner of yours, and we'll get into some examples. It's deeper than sort of the more general high-level data we see with third parties. It can be often exclusive to you. You might be the only person that has that, or it might be you and a group of people. It's often more actionable because first-party data tends to be more actionable. And it saves the effort of collecting your own first-party data, which that is my sort of expertise, and I know how much time and effort it can take. On the flip side, the challenges with second-party data is you're, again, relying on the methodology of others, and they might not have the rigor that you might put into getting the data. You need to ensure it's relevant. Not all second-party data is relevant to you, again, because the customers of your partners might be speaking to different segments and business models. There could be some crossover, but maybe there might only be a little bit. It can be tough to find people that share data with you, and their data sets might be smaller. And again, often there's a cost involved. So if you look at the examples of this, Paul, in the next slide, it could be names from a conference you sponsored, right? We're used to getting that in B2B for decades. Members of a trade association is another way as well. You can go to G2, Trust Radius. You can get information from them. There's public information from them. You can see the list of people who've reviewed software, right? You can go and talk to these people if you wanted to. And then you can also, I've seen it before, well, there's partnerships, right? Where people actually share data and they have agreements in place and NDAs and so on. So those are examples of second-party data, and you can see it's almost like a hybrid of the two because it is deeper, but it's not necessarily, it might not be contextual to your business. And I'll stop there if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, a couple of examples. I believe these would be good examples of second-party data. So correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I mentioned this a couple of jam sessions ago. But there's new tools out there. Partnering has become such a big deal in 2024, especially in the world of B2B. And there's middleware tools now where partner A and partner B can authenticate into the tool, and then it'll mine the CRM data between the two companies and will show deals that are in both systems. And so, like, for example, we're a Jasper partner, and that's an opportunity that we have where we can take our CRM data and through this third-party platform, mash that up with in an anonymized way, mash that up with Jasper CRM data, and it will tell us, what active accounts do we have that are also active accounts of Jasper's, and then we can use that information potentially to go co-promote our services. So I think that's an example of second-party data. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, I would say that's in the ballpark, right? Like this is like I said, there's blurred lines, but they overlap. But if you're trying to break it down into silos, these are the ways that I would sort of approach it, and a lot of other people do. But yeah, that's a very good example.
Yeah,
And
great.
then
Go ahead, Ryan.
no, I was going to say I was going to jump in the next slide, but
Sure.
add the last point. So this is my jam. I'm going to talk about it in the jam session. So first party data, it's what I live and breathe. And my personal point of view is this is the type of data you actually need to be successful in B2B marketing, because it's the most accurate and most reliable if you're getting it yourself. It should meet compliance regulations if you've done it properly. It's your data. You have it. That means your competitors don't. That means other people do not. If you've done a really good job, it's very contextual to how your business fits into the business of your customer. Because most business B2B solutions support a larger process of some kind. So you're partners over time, right? Like that's the nature of B2B. So you understand how the two models fit together, and it gives you the deepest insights. The challenge you're going to face is that you need, like I said, you're seeing a pattern here, methodology. It all comes down to the process. It can be somewhat challenging to interpret the data, depending on if you're doing qualitative, which is my specialty in interviewing, versus quantitative, which is high scale, but often like very specific questions in surveying. Can take a lot of resources. You have to keep doing it because markets are not static. They always shift. So you need to understand like how markets are shifting around you. Look what AI has done in the last year. Or what I used to say was like, what was the total addressable market of video chat before the pandemic? What is it now? There's all these things that are moving targets. So we have to actually do things. Just say, I'm just on a call, Lev. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Okay. I haven't, but I'll come help you in a bit. Sorry, the boss. And then the cost is set up, like the infrastructure of gathering all this data can sometimes be an issue. And you'll see what I mean when we go to the next slide, Paul, which is, the ways we collect this data. Like a CRM can be easily your first party data. Form fields, you mentioned that already, right? The forms people fill out are often how we collect first party data. Surveys, customer interviews is a big one for me. Recorded sales calls, CX calls. And then someone just dropped a comment in the chat, like what's the difference between zero and first party data? Just to touch on that quickly, how I see it defined is zero party data is data that I give over willingly without you asking me. So what that means is if you created some type of analysis tool that's free on your website, and I go and I give you a bunch of information about my business and what I do and what I care about, and I haven't really prompted you that much, that is often what they call zero party data. But I would argue a lot of that is still first party data because the columns overlap. So I am a big proponent of this type of stuff, but it takes work and time to set this up, which is often how people rely on the third party side of data. I'll stop there if there's anything you want to add because I have 2 more slides, but I just want to pause there.
Well, I've got a couple things. So I'm a huge proponent of this approach to first-party data. You get the value that you will attain from this. I'll just say it, it'll blow your mind, right? And we know that it's concrete, it's factual because you're having the conversations in a certain way, and especially how Ryan does his interview processes to really get that unbiased feedback. So I promise you that data set will smoke the majority of any other third, fourth, fifth, sixth party data that you can imagine. And really, Ryan, it's interesting because that zero data too in the customer interview process, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times you'll get what you may call zero party data because they're going to cough up all kinds of goodies that you hadn't even thought about.
Yep.
So it's really powerful. The other point we may not get to today, but also is just data hygiene, especially when you're looking at second, third, and other parties of data. Even like I was looking even at trade shows, sometimes the data that you get from a trade show isn't right. So you have a hygiene methodology, going back to Ryan's kind of framework for today about data hygiene. And I will tell you, the closer you get to first party data, the less data hygiene problems you will have.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. You know, Ryan, that reminds me, I did drop a link in the resources to that blog you wrote earlier this year about how to plug the top 10 data leaks in B2B marketing.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is in there. It's like making sure that we have very accurate and reliable first party data. You know, I think one of the themes, if we were to have like a meta narrative for today's discussion, it really is hey, third-party cookies are going away. What do you do about that? Well, you get better at collecting first-party data, which means we all need more first-party data. We need more people that are our ideal customers, our target audience. We need more of them to come in and raise their hand and say, "Yes, I want you to be able to email me, market to me. I want to see your information out there when I'm online." And we need to get better at collecting it. We need to get more of it, and then we need to figure out ways to enrich it so that we can leverage it for our marketing efforts moving forward. And I think long term, that's really how we get better at marketing. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on, but I think that's really the key here is, you know, third party cookies are going away, but let's just get better at first party marketing and marketing an
yeah.
audience that actually has raised their hand and said they're interested in what we have to say.
I think that's it. Because if you look at the next slide, how I look at this is like successful marketing programs are driven by all of this stuff. So I mentioned before, like I started in the days of, a pre-cookie world, and there's been a lot of indexing into the technology of the last 10 years. I don't think that's wrong. It's just that actually was a big appeal to people who came from the world who didn't have that data before. But the problem is people tend to have moved away from that first party side where, it really helps holistically build out all the pieces of the puzzle that you're trying to solve. So I often frame it for people is, third party and some of that second party data can really help you figure out where and who to target. But the first party data, and again, some of that second party, because they overline, that's just why I have a Venn diagram there, is like, how do you do marketing? What do you do in your marketing? That's really what the first party data solves and unlocks. Because the third party data won't really tell you the nuances of business models, how they make decisions, their vendor selection process, how they prioritize the budget, who's involved in the deals, all those things that we need to do to influence their decision-making process in marketing. So you need all these things. And if you go one more, the last slide, Paul, and then I'll sort of open up for everybody. If you have all that data, now you know how all these things can unfold across the buying funnel. And just quickly, like the buying funnel to me is more about organizing marketing. It's not really about how people buy. Like there's a different process people use in B2B to like purchase. The funnel is really about organizing your marketing assets in the order of the right way they consume information. But these are all ways that I've worked with clients around, we've gathered all the data we need, third party, second party, first party, wrapped it all up and built all these things like talk tracks and landing pages and content clusters, ads, webinars, all these things you need to then actually influence that full buying process. We use all those data sources. So it's not third party cookies going away isn't bad or good. It's just one part of the puzzle. And you might need a bit more of other pieces to help really flesh out how you make decisions.
Yeah, Ryan, I love this slide. I told you that yesterday when we were getting ready for today's meeting, but the great thing about this slide is it really helps us understand and put in context the role of the funnel, right? I think we all know that buyers don't buy through a linear progression. Wouldn't it be awesome if they did? But we know that they don't, right? We call it the messy middle for a reason because it's really messy. But what this does do is help us organize the information requirements that our buyers are going to have at the different stages. And so if we're going to be good marketers moving forward, what we really need to do, and this is where, Ryan, I think a key part of your presentation is just we need all types of data so that we can truly understand what are the information requirements that our buyers are going to need as they journey through these different stages, even though we know it's not going to be a linear progression. And then how do we message to them in a way that's appropriate, that makes sense to them, that moves them and creates momentum to them for them so that when they're ready to take action, they know exactly what to do and they're thinking of us first. I mean, I think that's really the key part to all of this, right?
Sorry, I was on mute because my kids are having a time. Yeah, it is. Like you need to I look at these things as a holistic approach. And, I've seen companies last, 20 years, especially last 10 years, where they'll dump $500,000 of ads into, or $500,000 of investment into ads each month. And it goes nowhere because they've been so reliant on the third party side of things and have ignored that first party side that they don't actually know what they need to show, what part of the purchasing funnel or the buying journey, and how to like build intent and influence people's thought process when it comes to buying solutions and working with other businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda. And I'm going to stop sharing. I think I actually already have. And what I want to do, if you'll just follow along with me on the agenda here, and hold on one second. And let's take a look at the agenda. Ryan, thank you for that presentation. I think that was super helpful for all of us to really understand, cookies are one thing, but data, third-party data is another thing, and it's all important that we leverage these things together in order to achieve our go-to-market motion that we're looking for. And sorry, I'm trying to pin some things here. So if you guys will follow along, the next thing on the agenda is this good or bad? And Ryan, I think you kind of touched on it. It's not good or bad, right? It's just different, and in many ways, it's back to the future. We were chatting beforehand how, marketing and advertising and selling has happened way before cookies ever entered the world, right? So it's in a way, third-party cookies and tools like retargeting kind of made us lazy marketers. Is that a fair statement?
I'll raise my hand on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I try not to use the word lazy. I try maybe complacent, I think is a way to look at it. One of the things we talked about, and I see it here, is, when I went back to the B2B world, I took a quick pause in my career. I became a reporter and then I went back. I wasn't using these tools like Salesforce or HubSpot. I actually hadn't really heard of them, to be awesome, because I was in a industry where it was a laggard technology. But what was pretty self-evident was that companies that indexed into the digital world, because that's what we called it 10 years ago, was digital marketing. It was another place to do marketing rather than now it's like the default way we speak to a market. People who I think built there first had a competitive advantage and have leveraged the tool, have had a competitive advantage, but I think that's gone now. I think you're sort of back to the basics, which is what I used to see 20 years ago when I started, where we understood our ideal customer profile, we understood the buyer, we understood their business model, we understood what they were trying to achieve, the issues they face in their business, and we build mental availability and stay top of mind with them over the course of quarters, right? Until the business conditions presented itself that I prioritized, I'm going to go solve this thing now. And now I knew who to speak with first and put on my short list. I think you're seeing the wave back to that mentality. I could be wrong, but so that's why I don't look at these things as bad or good. It's different. And in some ways, it's returning back to what it was.
Yeah.
So I go into it similarly, but I'm calling this the cookie crutch.
That's a good one, Ryan.
It's just a crutch we've all used and it's great. If you use it really well, it's awesome, but it's gone now or going. But the other thing is, as marketers, we tend to fall back on all kinds of other crutches. For example, automation. We all got really excited about automation. I can upload a list of 10,000 names and I can automate my marketing to them. Well, as you guys know, that actually doesn't work very well. So you still have to come in and do the hard work to personalize and make it right and do all the good things with automation as the undertone, right? So it's a very similar paradigm here. So I believe, and I'm with you, Ryan, this is going to force us all to get back to brass tacks, relationship marketing, doing things a little bit more of the old school way, if you will, rewinding 10 years. And frankly, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm going to take your crutch analogy, right? So digital technology happened, digital marketing became a thing, And for the first adopters, digital was a competitive advantage. And so, especially in B2B, because gosh, in B2B, we're historically late bloomers, right? We want to we want to follow what B2C world is doing. We want to lean on and hold on to the things that worked for us in the past. And so B2B companies that jumped on the digital bandwagon at first had a competitive advantage. But to Ryan Gibson's point, everybody's doing digital marketing now. We don't even call it digital. It's just the way that we market. And so that's not a competitive advantage anymore. Third party, first party cookies, it doesn't matter. Digital is not a competitive advantage. So then what becomes the competitive advantage, right? The competitive advantage is who can outmarket and out communicate and out message their competitor, right? So the best marketer, to your point, Ryan Miller, it's getting back to the basics. It's who's going to be the better storyteller, who's going to reach that audience with a message that really matters to them the most. I think that's the world that we're heading into, and I think that's an exciting world to be in.
This kind of fluffy, but like the race may be who cares the most about their target audience.
Yeah, I don't think that's
the
fluffy.
most and help them with the journey and be easy to buy from and walk alongside them in their 6 to 24-month buying journey, you're going to win over your competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's transition in just a second to the last part of the agenda. We've got literally a laundry list of things that you can do in today's world after the demise of third-party cookies to, kind of go back to that meta narrative I talked about earlier. How do we get more first-party data? How do we get that first-party data to throw off more signals? How do we get better at marketing to our first-party connections? And so we've given you a laundry list there. We're going to talk through those. But before we do, Andrea, are there any questions that we want to tee up that you'd like us to address maybe before we transition into that? And then Ryan, feel free to ask your question too, because I'd love to get the feedback from the audience. So Andrea, you first, any questions?
One that stood out to me was just questions around still having to opt in to these cookies and what that looks like.
Got you. Yeah. So, there's lots of ways to collect first-party data. One of the ways to collect first-party data is when people come to our website. One of the ways we can collect first-party data on our website is by having a pixel that allows us to put information on their browser. And in today's world, thanks to the GDPR and all the privacy concerns, we really need to have an opportunity for them to opt in. Now, we could arm wrestle all day long about to what degree do we need to allow people to opt in? There's lots of, and if you've got a WordPress site or any site, there's all kinds of plugins that you can add to your website that ask users to opt in. Some are more, ask for permission. And some are more ask for forgiveness is probably the way I think about it. Like we have some clients that literally no cookies at all. No cookies. We're not going to track you at all until you absolutely give us permission to track you one bit. Some of them out there, and I don't agree. I'm not in that camp. I don't think we need to be that way. I'm more of a fan. And if you go visit our website for the first time, you'll see it. The little cookie bar shows up and it says, hey, we're tracking you. If you want to opt out of this, you can click here and give us your preferences. And I think for the United States, that's fine. Now, I will tell you, we don't do a lot of business in Europe. We don't, we market for our clients all over the world, but we don't go after new clients in Europe. And so we're taking a different approach over there. So in the United States, we tell you we're tracking you and you can opt out of it. In the UK or in Europe, we have a totally different approach. So it's more of that you've got to opt in for us to track you in Europe. But we do that because we want to be compliant over there. And it doesn't matter to us as much as understanding what people are doing on our website. Now, I will tell you, when you do these things, be aware that your traffic reports are going to be totally different. I have to remind myself, or Ryan Miller has to remind me all the time when I look at traffic reports and I go, oh my gosh, what happened in May of last year? And he's like, dude, that's when we started blocking all the European cookies so that people are having to opt in for us to track them. So just be aware that those things are going to happen. But the other part of first-party data is, getting people to fill out a form or getting information from a sales rep that's building his own network of prospects. That's another way of collecting first-party data. It doesn't all happen on our website. Ryan Gibson or Ryan Miller, anything you want to add to that?
No, not that I can think
Oh,
of.
well covered.
Okay. All right. Well, Ryan Miller,
Yeah,
gosh, it's hard when there's two Ryans on the call.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it to you, sir.
Well, first of all, it's a wonderful name, so well done,
That's
Ryan.
true. Thank you.
Yeah, or at least your parents. So we're really curious. Hey, we've kind of given you guys some things to chew on. Many of you that are here are already kind of experiencing questions in your head. Maybe you're already taking action, but we'd love to hear from you guys if you don't mind sounding off a bit or chatting it in. But what are your plans? Anybody brave enough to jump in and kind of share with us?
You,
What are
you
your
have one question from Amanda there. We're having trouble determining which are considered functional and strictly necessary when it comes, I'm guessing
from
data.
a
Amanda.
cookie
That's your
perspective?
question? Not sure.
Yeah, we could play with that one, Paul.
Yeah, Amanda, maybe you can be a little bit more clear, just trying to understand like functional versus strictly necessary. You're talking about your cookie, um, the cookie. Help us
Yeah,
understand that
Paul.
question a little bit.
Yeah.
Paul, we use Cookie Pro, and we have to categorize all of these cookies in the back end. First of all, figuring out which each of one is nearly impossible. And the second issue is whether they're functional, strictly necessary, performance-based, targeting-based. It's just all so much. So I'm just a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it to really see, but it is challenging today just to understand, what we are tracking. I mean, we have more pixels on our website than just the things that we're using to track individuals, right? We have all these other pixels that are helping us just manage our marketing. So I can see how that's challenging, and I'd have to look and see. Maybe that's something we can take offline specifically. Happy to address that for you. But what are you guys doing? Like, how are you planning on marketing in, moving forward, knowing that in April, things like that we used to do through third-party cookies aren't going to be as effective anymore, like retargeting, potentially intent data. What are your plans? So we've got a laundry list here that we're going to go through, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Hey, it looks like Amanda Mark gave you a good answer there. Good stuff there, Mark or Mike. I appreciate that.
There might be a free cookie in somebody
Yeah,
if you
there might be a free cookie.
We might pick your favorite cookie they nominated earlier and send you one.
Well, hey guys, we've got about 8 minutes left, and one thing that we do promise you every single month is we do wrap at the top of the hour. We want to be respectful of your time. We want this to be high value. There will be a replay that we'll get out to everybody. We can certainly continue the discussion in the Demand Gen Jammers group, but we'll just wrap this meeting with this last agenda item and just kind of talk you through. As we brainstormed internally, what are things that you can do in this post third-party cookie world to continue to market and get more first party data? And some of them I think are going to be completely obvious to you guys, but let's just go through the list, and Ryan and Andrea, feel free to jump in. And I'm just literally just looking at the list here, but obviously we want to do more things that throw off first party signals, right? So you've got a CRM list, you've got a list of folks that have opted in somehow, some way. What can you do, and what strategies can you do to continue to keep them re-energized and to throw off signals that show you that there's some interest there? And so you'll see some things in our laundry list below that are designed to do those things. One of my favorites is an event like this. And so we have a serialized event. There's a lot of reasons why we do a serialized event, but one of the reasons is that we can send an email out to our CRM list every single month and say, hey, we've got a Demand Gen Jam session coming up on this topic. And so the people that register for that, that's a signal. The people that show up for that, that's a signal. So we're now knowing, hey, they're engaged, they're interested in us, and they're also interested in this topic. And so that's an example of an easy one that you can use to get your first party data to throw off more signals. We talked about Ryan's blog. Ryan wrote a really awesome blog at the beginning of the year about plugging data leaks. But anything you want to add just about enhancing data that you haven't covered already?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I mean there's so many things to consider, Paul. So I don't want to kind of muddle us down a whole lot more, but we can share that blog with you guys again just to make sure you kind of a refresher. But Paul, one of the things that again, coming back to really Ryan's point about first party data and this kind of stuff, even the event we're doing in Denver, right? I mean, we are 100% there to share our knowledge, gain knowledge that you guys are up to, those who attend, and play some games. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to have a list of people, right? We're going to have intimate relationships. As if you get, in that 3 hour period, we're going to get to know each other. You're going to be able to get to know us, blah, blah, blah. But that level of data is interesting. And if you guys watch any of the trends of in-person meetings and in-person events, it's skyrocketing again, right? Finally, what it's 3 years, 4 years later, here we are. But people are coming back to that, and that's what we're talking about too, is that intimacy and getting good information. At the end of the day, it still just comes down to a good handshake. That's all this is.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Ryan Gibson, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say one of the things I've been really big on the last few years, I do a lot of B2B investigations and interviews. And if you do a lot, I'm up in the thousands now, you'll see that the content formats and the channels are almost secondary to relevancy and credibility of the vendor. So what I mean by that is whenever people look for a solution, they really look through the lens of, does this business understand my business? Do they understand me and my role and my challenges? And do they look like they're someone I could work with? And one of the ways to really get yourself on that short list is if you understand the processes that businesses have. Let me give you like one example. I worked with a company in Europe that was building automated chargeback software. We found out that there was actually no good training for how teams should do that at the enterprise level. There was nothing out there, zero. And there was like a huge opportunity for that company because they could go in, and I'm not talking like training as in how to use our software. How does that whole system work if you had to build out a department of chargeback operators, right? Like that's the level of depth I'm talking about when we're looking at processes. Because if you can understand all the ways they get stuck, even if it's not your solution, but you can provide answers and you can provide value and you can provide guidance, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the first vendor on that short list when it comes time for them to think of a solution.
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great point. It makes me think about one of the things that's on our list, which is just content marketing. If we've got to become really, really good at content marketing because of what you just described, we've got to make it on the short list. That mental short list, you hear us talk about it all the time at these jam sessions, that, intent data is all about going after people that are in market. And intent data is driven very heavily by third-party cookies. And I would submit to you that an intent data only strategy is a very dangerous strategy because you haven't had a chance to infiltrate their brain and deliver value so that they go, oh, this is a preferred vendor. This is somebody that I think can help me solve this problem. A good content marketing with good distribution around a core set of content pillars are the things that you need to do to really get in front of a buyer before they're in market. And through customer investigations like you're talking about, Ryan, is where you find those golden nuggets that you can use, right?
And if I may, like back when I was, like I said, pre-internet, when I was a buyer and I would be responsible for, contracts, for procurement contracts that are worth about $1 million US annually, my AE or other AEs would just send me stuff. Market research data, this type of thing. They tell me they went to our operations and saw this, and I saw this, and I thought of you. Those are all things that made me think of them when the time was up for the contract to get renegotiated, right? And that was before the internet.
Yeah,
really. So like you have to. I don't even think of it as content marketing. I think of it as like the core foundations of business development. Right? We just call part of it content marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly understanding our customer. What are those information requirements that they have and making sure that we serve them well with that information. And so, guys, I'm looking at the clock. I noticed we got 1 minute to go. Ryan Gibson, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a very interesting conversation. It's a very interesting world that we're finding ourselves in. Ryan Miller, something you said I really loved, hey, the best marketer is going to win moving forward. So this is an opportunity for all of us to sharpen our pencil, really understand our customers well, figure out how to get more first-party data in, how to get that first-party data to throw off more signals through enrichment, through marketing strategies, et cetera. Let's keep this conversation going over at the Demand Gen Jammers group. That's exactly why that group is there. It's on LinkedIn. Even though LinkedIn's not my favorite place to have a group, We intentionally have the group there because it's where we all spend some time. So please join that group. Let's keep the conversation going. There's a whole laundry list of other things that you can do. If you've got questions about those, run over to the Demand Gen Jammers group and ask those questions there. We can moderate that and answer them for you, or feel free to reach out to any of us. Would be happy to answer those. And if you're in Denver next month, you've got to come see us in person. We would love, love, love to see you. And if you're not in Denver, please join us for the middle of the month for next month when we get into some real practical ways that B2B marketers are leveraging AI right now. I know all of you are probably thinking about AI and trying to figure out what are the best ways to accomplish what you need to do with AI. So we're going to try to unpack that for you in April. So guys, thank you so much. Enjoy this wonderful weather. If you're having wonderful weather where you are, I certainly am here. And we will see you next month. Take care, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.